Hello and welcome to another broadcast from BSBA. It's a community conversation. This time we are going to get into COVID-19 and the church. And I have some very special guests of mine in the building. We are going to allow them to introduce themselves momentarily. But first of all, we want to pop over to Selena so she can tell you what the thought process was behind having this conversation and why it's so important. Selena, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi,
Go ahead.
everybody. Hello, world. I want to welcome you and thank you for tuning in to our second broadcast, COVID in the Church. Is closing the doors a lack of faith, or closing the church of lack of faith. I just felt it was important to have this conversation because recently, according to the definition of a small business, it's any business that has 1 to 500 employees. And so I think the church kind of falls under that guise. So I want to bring resources to the church and make sure that we are informed and aware of what's happening and figure out how best to weigh in on issues when it's time for us to weigh in on issues and to be quiet when we need to be quiet. So thank you for joining us, and I will turn it back over to Lorene.
Fantastic. So before we get started, I want to just remind everybody to go ahead and share this on your social media. We need to get this party going and we need your people to do it. So go ahead and share that while we're taking a moment and we will go in for introductions. I will start with Elder Aaron Macklin.
Hello, everyone. I am Elder Aaron Macklin, Associate Minister at Glad Tidings International in Hayward, serving under who I believe is probably one of the greatest leaders of my time, my own pastor and my own father, Bishop J.W. Macklin. I'm just glad to be on, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so very much. Let's go over to Pastor Cortland Younger.
Amen.
Cousin Pastor.
My name is Cortland Younger, and I am the pastor of Gospel Center Church of God in Christ in Sacramento. I've been pastoring for about 5 years now, but been ministering for 20. And I'm glad to be here, glad to be invited to this wonderful conversation here. Bless you.
Welcome. Bishop-elect D.L. Edwards. Say hello to the peoples.
Hey, everybody. You just heard I'm Bishop-elect D.L. Edwards. I'm probably one of the least among you, but I'm happy to be a part of this conversation. And I look forward to what's going to come in the days and the weeks to come.
Can we know what church you're at, sir? What church and where it's located?
Sure. I'm the proud pastor of the Connection Church here in the city of Sacramento, California. We serve on the south side of town. And I'm just happy to be here.
Okay, fantastic. Pastor Darrell.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Pastor Darrell Scarborough of Boss Church in South Sacramento. And so glad to be a part of the conversation.
And what he won't tell you, he won't claim responsibility for me. I'm one of his. He won't claim responsibility for me and everything that comes out of my mouth, but that is my pastor. All right, Pastor Yardy, it's up to you. It's on you.
Hey, I'm Pastor Yardley Griffin Jr. I pastor Destiny Experience Church in Sacramento, and I'm thankful to be here. Thank y'all for letting me on.
Great. So we're just gonna jump right in because I don't see the point of wasting any time. Are y'all churches closed? Are they closed?
I think I need to go outside.
Yeah.
Everybody's church closed?
Yeah.
Now, did you close when they told you to close, or you closed when you got ready? Like, what? Who closed right away?
I followed all the mandates. I followed everything that was happening.
Uh-huh.
I think
And
that's
so
Where you going, B?
You gonna have a side conversation? All right. Remember that when you're not talking, go ahead and mute your phone so we don't have to be asking you who you talking to because you're not talking to us. Okay. So when people talk about, because I've been reading and I know you have too, about the churches who are not closing, is that against the Bible in some way, or is it an act of faith for them to keep their churches open. And anybody can jump in. I'm just whoever wants to take that, go ahead, and or I'm gonna pick somebody.
So I don't think it's a lack of faith. I think that at the end of the day, it is a balance between wisdom and faith. That you have to, the blood of Jesus, we do believe that God has power, that there are certain levels of wisdom I think we all have to use. It doesn't, this is just my opinion, it doesn't benefit to press forward at this particular time. But at the same time, just like I know Lorene, and who I love so much, but I know she is different than someone else who attends the church. The same thing is true of every church. A pastor has to know his church. He has to know his flock. He has to know the culture of that church. And so if I had a church full of renegades who are just like, look, we showing up whether you there or not, then you have to pastor them where they are and understand that. So I don't think it's foolishness. I also don't know how much of it I would say is just straight up faith. But I think it's a matter of a pastor knowing his congregation that determines what he does at this time.
I would agree with him. It's you have to be intelligent at the same time. You have to know who you're pastoring, and then you have to. I know I personally have erred on the side of caution, maybe a little too cautious for some. But my church is kind of multi-generational, and so I have quite a few older people in the church, and so I really want to be sure that everyone is safe, and so. You just have to, and you take some hits when you take them, but it's up to each individual pastor what they would do. I wouldn't say it's faith to close it. I wouldn't say it's faith to open it. I would just say you have to trust God in your own intelligence, your own wisdom in that moment, because it takes faith to close because your tithes and offerings can go down. It takes faith to stay open because people can call you crazy. And so I don't think one is greater than the other. And so that's what I would suggest on that.
Okay. Pastor Cortland, why don't you go ahead and then we will move to Elder Macklin.
Well, what I did in order to help bring my mind to some peace. First I had to ask God, has this been done before? And when I asked that question, I began to search the scriptures. I had to search the scriptures because people are looking for leadership. And because people are looking for leadership, they are looking for you as a leader, I believe, to be a representative of God on their behalf. And because we have so much influence in the church, we can cause people to error, right? And so for me, it was important for me to take a look at scripture, and specifically Isaiah chapter 26. You know, that right there helps solidify just a decision, because I'm already a protector. So if you mess with mine, I didn't want to have to go lay hands on the sick because I put them in a situation, I just didn't want to do that. And so that was part of my process, my decision on making sure that the people of God were safe.
Elder Aaron?
Yeah, I would. I have to agree, Pastor Cortland. You have to exhibit a certain level of confidence in God. Number one, this is not going to be the last time the church is faced with a decision of whether you are to stay open or to stay closed. What we did, we didn't use the term "the church is closed." We said the doors are closed, but the church is open. When you just put a sign up that says close, 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 it sends the wrong message, right? So if your church is supposed to be ministering to the community and serving the needs of the people, you don't, in my opinion, I don't ever want to use the words, my church is closed. I'll say the doors are closed, but the church still has to carry on. So is it a lack of faith? No, I think this gives us the opportunity to use creative faith to where God can say, cool, now the doors are closed, but that doesn't mean you can't still minister to people. How are you going to get through this hurdle? Oh, wait, I'm God. Let me help you do that. So it just gives God a reason to help us be creative.
Oh, great answer. So I just want to remind the audience that we are taking questions. So if you have a question, go ahead and type it into Facebook and we will get to it. We do have our first question. It says, many Christian seniors primarily socialize at church events. For example, Bible study, prayer meeting, and church. What type of programming is your church planning for your senior population during the COVID-19 shelter in place? Specifically, how are you connecting with your seniors who may not be familiar with the virtual world? Thank you so much, Denise, for the question. I am going to go to Pastor Cortland. How are you connecting with your seniors?
This is a difficult task, especially being shelter in place. We've had the opportunity to try to help our seniors navigate into a program called Zoom. It's been extremely hard. I'm not going to say it's not challenging, because some of our seniors who are at the age of 80 and 90, they just simply say, I can't do it. It's too frustrating for me in order to try to do it. And so there are also some that are making their way. So we try to link up with some of their children to help them get into the programs, so that way they can stay connected. As of now, it's a difficult task on hand, and really we kind of just moving as a unit. We're not really having programs right now. We're just kind of moving as a body and everything.
Gotcha. Okay. Pastor Yardley, how are you connecting with your seniors?
Well, it's a daily process. We every day I reach out to different seniors and different individuals in our church, and like Pastor Cortland, we have attempted to walk each individual through the Zoom and get them on Facebook and get them on the different social networks so we can continue to touch them. We have our seniors ministry that is being sure to, which we call our Caleb generation, that is being sure to touch each individual senior, and it's just step by step. It's different because if we don't have such a large church where it's that much more difficult, and so it's a little easier for someone like me because I don't have a huge, very, very large church, so I can spend the day on the phone and spend time with a couple of us can spend the day on the phone and texting and calling them and just touching bases with them and being sure they're reaching each other. And so different people will end up doing different things, but that's what we're doing.
Fantastic. And I know that we went through introductions really quickly, but one of our guests just happened to get here. He just got free. And so I wanted to throw it to him to let him introduce himself to you all here in Sacramento. Hey, introduce yourself, sir.
Okay. Well, hello, family. This is Joel Jones. I'm a state representative out here in Michigan. Met Lorene and Selena through our Black Youth Leadership Project that was out in Sacramento. So just happy to be here. Excited to hear the conversation. I'm glad that this is going on. I think our faith leaders are some of the most important and critical folk in the community. So I'm just here to shed some light on that and hear what we can do better in our communities at the moment.
Fantastic. And what he won't tell you is that he's actually a senior deacon at his church. So you didn't, what church do you belong to, sir?
Right. So I attend the Spiritual Israel Church in this Army, Temple number 8, which is on the west side of Detroit. But we do have temples across the nation. So, I'm out and about doing many different things. So maybe one day I get a chance to run into some of you good folks during our daily walk.
All right. Well, we appreciate you taking the time out to be with us and just hang out because we're going to be coming to you quite a lot. So how have the closures impacted your ministries? DL, Pastor DL, can we go to you?
Absolutely. We have been a church that we like to gravitate towards technology. I want to consider myself a young pastor. So I use technology in my messages, sending my notes over to our parishioners' cell phones, in service, since I know that they're already going to have their cell phones. I don't ascribe to a theology of turning your phone off during service. So we just commandeered those cell phones and we sent our notes and different big news we may have at church. So my church has kind of been poised for this particular move. But as the older generation, bringing them aboard, I realized we had to send them direct links to make sure it wasn't too many pieces of information or directions they had to follow in order to get on, to see their pastor, or to give, or to hear praise and worship. That's kind of how we're tackling right now.
Okay, great. Pastor Daryl, same question. How are you connecting? How has the closures impacted your church, Pastor Daryl?
It's impacted us in two ways. One, in the sense that we have been able to step up into the areas that we've been most comfortable. Boss has always been, even when Bishop Carthen pastored, a very outreach-driven church, a very community-focused church. And I think over the years since he passed and in transition, even the couple of years I've been here, we've still been trying to stabilize and get used to a new life and get used to different things. But this has kind of forced us back to the heart of who we've been in terms of how we mobilize to go out and assist the community, things of that nature. So I don't know if I would say change. I think it's pushed us back to our original identity in some degree. And then the other side of it is that it's caused, I'm a young old man. I know about technology. We've had, we had an app, we've had all kind of stuff, but I never really utilized the stuff. We've always just had the tools there. And so now it has forced me to shift and begin to utilize the things that God has already given us the ability to have in our stable. So now we're using the app, we're pushing out content, and it's just pushed us into another place of creativity. So thus far, it's not been a negative impact on us. God's grace. And so that's kind of how it shifted us.
Pastor Yardley, how has the closures impacted your ministry, sir?
I wouldn't say negatively. I would say it's caused us to really work. It's caused us to really realize how close we really are. And just to do a little more connecting with one another. We're already a very close church, but to do a little more connecting one to another. Interestingly enough, because my father, he just passed away back in July, so we had just taken a major break with the church from the end of July up until the new year. And so all we had was worship on Sundays. We didn't have any Bible study and things like that, which during that time we were just being healed. And because we transitioned to a new facility, so being healed and just getting back to who we really were. And so we've only been back into new vision and things like that for the last couple months. And so this kind of hit, but it hit us at a point where we were really comfortable becoming into who we were, but we really hadn't launched all the way back into everything. We're still in the middle of creating. And so it really hasn't shaken us to that greater degree, because we are in the middle of creating right there, and we don't have a whole lot of ministries back online. And so we're just kind of we're kind of coasting right now. And so I love my church, and we're doing well. We're doing well. Destiny's doing well.
Well, we are sorry for your loss, absolutely, and we know what it's like to lose a pastor and a leader. Because at Boss Church we did lose our pastor too, and it was quite a healing process. So we do want to acknowledge you and lift you up moving forward. So I wanted to know, because I've been reading a lot of articles, and I've been seeing pastors being arrested. As a matter of fact, I saw something about a church in Contra Costa that received a fine or a citation for remaining open during this pandemic. So a lot of folks that I've been seeing the comments, they're saying that churches just want the people's money. So my question to you all is, are churches being defiant because of money? Is it about the money? And I am going to throw it to Elder Macklin.
I knew that you were coming to me with this question.
I'm sorry.
But I said I knew that you were coming to me with this question.
You're welcome.
Yeah, our church is being defiant. Oh, our church is only doing it for the money.
Mm-hmm.
I think it asks a great question. Most people in times of crisis always point fingers at the church. When the hurricane hit, when Harvey hit Texas, they looked at Joel Osteen and said, "Oh, he's not doing this; he's doing this." And any reason that you want to point fingers at the church, you will. So, of course, during COVID-19, when churches are shutting down, people will point fingers and say, "See, they only want to get you there because they need money." Well, churches do have bills. Churches do have pastors. Our church, we employ about 22 people in total, like actually employ them. So people do rely on ministries to feed their families. So that's not something totally, out of this world to say churches need money. They do. Churches are a business. People still need to eat. So that's not a bad thing. I think when your church is focusing on the wrong thing, saying, I have no other source of income, and you have like a 10-member church, and the pastor says, I need you all to show up so that way my bills can be paid, I think that's the wrong spirit. I think there are some pastors who don't have the right spirit, which is why they may have, broke the rules. But when your ministry is really not geared toward just money, and you can't operate any ministry without money, you really just have to focus on how can people still, understand the church is not here for money, but the church still needs money to operate. So it's not I think some pastors are doing it for that, not all. But it's just, again, it's causing us, giving us ways to be creative about fundraising.
Right. And you said not all churches are doing it, but it seems like the ones that they're writing these stories on, the motives do seem to be kind of challenged. So should churches be held to a higher standard? And you don't have to answer that. I'm a pass it. I'm a lob the ball. We're going to go to Pastor Yardley. Should churches be held to a higher standard? Where is he at? Did he hear me? Pastor Yardley, should churches be held to a higher standard?
Should churches be held to a higher standard? To a certain degree, I would assume that they could be held to a higher standard. We do have a charge over us by God to take care of God's people, and so I think that should be our first priority, is to take care of God's people, and not necessarily to listen to what naysayers are saying or to what others say that we should be doing. But our first priority should be for the health, safety, and wellness of God's people that God gave us charge over, and so a higher level of responsibility in terms of taking care of what God gave us. But just as Elder Macklin said, sometimes we get a bad name because of the fact that we don't do what people think we ought to do. We're not out feeding everybody. But if you look at the gospel, our first call was never to do that. First call is to preach the gospel. Is to get the gospel to people. And so we have a great responsibility, that is to take care of what God gave us and to share God's word with God's people. And so that's our number one responsibility that we have, and that I believe after reading the word of God. So that's what I believe. And so, that's a responsibility. That's a greater responsibility than anything that anyone can try to throw on us. And so
Okay. And so I see a question. It says, what are some ways the church can help the community deal with this pandemic? In other words, how are y'all helping? Let's go to Pastor Daryl. How are y'all helping the community?
By being the church.
And what does that mean? What does that mean?
I think that, even connecting to your previous question, that no one asked our liquor stores out for money by staying open. Nobody's asking, is Home Depot that's been packed staying open for money? They're considered essential services. And I think we have failed in this country, especially, to realize that the church is an essential service. Yes, people get paid. Yes, pastors are paid. Yes, you have staff, but it's an essential service. And the essential service is how we currently provide for the community. That is the preaching of the word of God. That is the declaration of hope. That is people putting feet to the gospel, going to homes. I would venture to say, now I'm making up, and Lorene knows, those 10 boss know I make up statistics sometimes, but I would venture to say 90% of the folk out here right now that are serving in any capacity, whether medical, whether as police, whatever, have some root in the belief of Jesus Christ as Savior and Lord. You don't do the stuff that's being done unless you have a root greater than what the world offers. And so it is the church that declares hope. It is the church that gives life. And whether that is together in physical presence or whether that is online through preaching and teaching, which, ironically, this has put probably more preaching and teaching into the airwaves than we were ever producing in all of last year. And so how does the church provide? That's how it provides. And I could just be, biased in that, but I believe the church is the hope of the world. And if the gospel is not preached, and how can it be preached unless there's a preacher, unless there's a church? And so that is the service that we provide. And that is the foundation for many that volunteer even right now.
Okay. Let's go over to Representative Jones really quick. How is your church serving the people there?
I think right now, just to agree with what my brother said, we are simply being the church right now, being this beacon of hope for a lot of people. Additionally, we're doing things in the community in terms of, charitable things, whether that's feeding folk or get people connected to the right resources with the state. Even through my own personal office, we're figuring out what are people good at in this church, what are people's skill sets, what are people doing during their daily life to make sure they contribute back to some of their brothers and sisters in the church. I think that's been the biggest thing. I'm trying to figure out how can we all help each other out during this process, because of course all state departments, county departments, local departments are stressed with they're being inundated with a lot of questions and concerns and comments. So now we're just trying to figure out who is to your left and right, who has a certain skill set that might be able to help you out. I think that's been the biggest thing. We're really just serving as a resource right now. Not only us, but all the churches out here, because Michigan's been hit very hard, Detroit specifically. So we're really all just banding together. You see a true spirit of unity right now, just in terms of us being able to make it through this.
Okay. Great. And so we have a question. It says, aren't we to obey the laws of the land? Let's go to Pastor DL. Aren't we to obey the laws of the land? And I'm wondering if this is in response to, we're just out here being the church. Are we supposed to obey the laws of the land? What is our responsibility or your responsibility as a pastor in how you guide your flock?
That's a great question. I think Jesus admonishes us to obey the laws of the land as long as it doesn't refute our character as being Christians or being Christ-like followers. And to be honest, the church has always had adversity in good seasons and in not so good seasons. So the church is going to overcome the naysayers saying, well, they only want it for money, they only want it for tithes and offerings. The trip about that conversation is most of those people then turn back to the church and then ask the question, what is the church doing? Well, the church can't do anything unless we, like Applebee's and Ruby Tuesdays, are getting resources. It's hard to give people fish if you don't allow us to take in the resources so that we can. So there needs to be proper understanding that the church, like any other business, I was reading something the other day where Ruth Chris got a $20 million bailout during this coronavirus season. And so we're not seeing that in the form of bailout for churches and things of that nature. Pastors are being left to their own devices to fend for themselves, all for the sake of we're the church and we may not necessarily be taxable as nonprofits. And so we need to understand we're going to get over the negative talk, but that's how we actually help people.
Okay. And on to that point, have any of the churches applied for the pandemic relief funds? Have any of the churches? You can go ahead and put more folks up on the screen. We want to hear which of your churches have actually applied for the pandemic relief funds that the federal government made available.
We applied.
Yeah, we applied too.
So, okay. And has anybody heard anything back, or y'all just waiting like everybody else?
Just
Take
waiting.
some time.
The great silence.
It'll take some time.
For those who did not apply, is there a reason you did not apply? Did you not know you were eligible, or what was it?
I didn't apply because right now it's not necessary to what we're trying to accomplish right now. And because we have gotten ourselves out of this amazing hole that we were in, I feel pretty good about being out of every hole. And right now we are celebrating being in a good space and without any extra help. And so right now it's not necessary for what we're doing, and we're okay. We're okay.
Okay.
We're okay.
For me, Lorene, it's been somewhat of a relief. We don't have to pay musicians. We don't have to necessarily pay for a building. I don't have my own building, so we're kind of like subleasing a building, so we don't have to pay into any of that. So it's been sort of a break for us financially on that regard. So we've been inundated with so much information on the virus and on the pandemic. We really haven't had time to sit down and see what we could actually give at this particular point.
And I see a comment. It says, please share how to apply. My church didn't. I am not the share guru. However, I can point you to Pastor K, who was actually on Tuesday. We can get you her information so that she can assist those of you who want and need to apply for those funds. I'm not sure what else is left. You know, I was watching the news and they said somehow they done ran out of money. So I'm not really sure if the money is still available. But we can get you in touch with Pastor K. And if you look on the bottom of your screen, the information is scrolling right now. So thank you for that comment. So with the musicians, or some of you are not paying musicians currently, some of you have successfully gone on to the streaming platforms. When churches resume, back to business as usual. Do you see the virtual stuff going away, or will it be?
So,
I see your head shaking, so I'm gonna go to Elder Macklin. You were first.
for about 3 or 4 days when we started our Zoom, my father would get on the Zoom calls with our church first, and then he would get on Zoom with all the pastors of the jurisdiction. And he said the only churches that are going to lose after COVID-19 are the churches that choose to remain the same. Life will never be the same again. We are fighting something we cannot see. There are no symptoms. Many people who have it are asymptomatic and don't even know they have it. You don't know if somebody has it or if they don't have it. You also don't know if somebody they've been in contact with transferred it to them, because there are no symptoms. And most of the people who have it don't know they have it. And then when we're living where you're looking at a scroll every single day of 10,000 people dead, 12,000 people dead, 13,000 people dead. There will never, ever be a time where we'll say, oh, you remember about COVID-19? No, I don't remember. We will always remember this. This is changing the face of ministry for the rest of our lives. This is going to be the defining moment to figure out, will your church survive after this? This is it. So if there's any other greater time for the church to stand up, it is to say, and I'm actually hosting it with several other bishops and pastors, how do you preach after COVID-19? Because the message can't just be, oh, name it and claim it. I'm glad you could do that. That's one of them. Please keep preaching that. But now preach to me about how can I live when literally a lady in our church lost her husband and her only son. She needs something else other than name it and claim it. You know, she needs something to hold on to. You know, so now the church has to, as Pastor Griffin said, become a pillar of hope. You know, how can I still stand here as a pillar of hope? It'll never be the same. It's going to be
Yeah.
different. We have engaged more people in our morning prayer through Zoom than we've ever engaged. We have prayer every day on campus at Glad Tidings, and I will go in prayer and see 8 people. In the morning prayer on Zoom alone, we have over 150 people.
Wow.
That's every single morning, and they're waiting on the call, just waiting for the call to start. I would never shut it off and say after COVID we're never doing that again. You know how many people you're missing in the opportunity to minister to? Come on, church will never be the same.
Wow. Pastor Younger, you agree?
I definitely agree. I think the Lord has kind of opened up our understanding of our reach now. We are able to even speak to people. I've been on phone calls with Elder Macklin and Bishop, where we can connect with people in Japan and all over the world in a moment. So it charges you to have to look at ministry differently and open up your understanding and really kind of where God has had to reshape our minds and how to have the capacity to do ministry, not only in the mortar and the brick, but also virtually too. God is calling us to a greater call, and I believe that He's mobilizing the church. He is mobilizing the church in a way that's going to impact the world. And when we come out of this, I believe it's going to be like when Jesus rose from the dead. I think it's going to be a whole lot of other people that's going to come out with us when this is all said and done.
Pastor Daryl.
I think the church goes back to being who the church should have never stopped being. And that's really all it is. It awakes a sleeping giant. I will say my concern is that human beings are human beings. And that while we will always remember COVID-19, my fear is that it will become a bumper sticker like 9/11. And we will slowly morph back the commercial foolishness that the church has become. I think this is more God speaking. Somebody mentioned before, oh, God judging the world, and no, I think it's more God smacking His church and saying, "Wake up, pastors! Wake up, bishops! Wake up, elders!" Because it's not so much we can't go back; it's that we have to begin to blend the best practices that we have perfected over the last 20, 30 years with what we're learning in this moment. It is, how do we get the 150 that will show up in Zoom into a place where you can disciple them in person? And not just they get discipled by me, but if they get on the line with me, I can say, man, Yardley is over in so-and-so. I know you live over there. Go over there. It needs to create a thing where the division between churches comes down, the fighting between churches comes down, and everybody realizes, just like you've been fighting an invisible thing, now you can preach to folk and say, you know how you were scared of that invisible thing you couldn't see? Now trust in the invisible person you never trusted in before. And let me tell you how, because we did it. We've done it before. And now we've been in the same boat as you. We're in the same boat. Let's talk about it. And so I think it just wakes us up. And we have to stand up now and be like, we cannot go back to the foolishness of 19. We have to become a different church. But I think it's just a morphing of the blending of the best of before and what we're learning now.
Okay. And it's the question that I see, it says, I heard 6 resurrection sermons, all my favorite preachers. There are positives there. Does this cause a concern? My pastor teaches, eat too many places, you will never know where you came up sick spiritually. Does that cause concern for you, Pastor Dio? Does that cause concern? People taking in multiple sermons from multiple places?
I don't. That's a good question. I don't run away from what you can get. I'm going to be honest. Before now, some of us never really understood how much ratchet TV had infected the internet and things of that nature. TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. To me, now this season says we got gospel going in every direction all day long. Free concerts, free word, morning, noonday, evening prayer. I think it's incredible. What I think really bothers me is COVID has made the church kind of implode on itself, and we're tearing each other apart instead of seeing now has nothing to do with whether or not we're apostolic or Baptist or Kojic or whatever the case may be. It is, are we spreading the good news of Jesus Christ? And that's what I think is very important in this COVID season.
Pastor Yardley, do you think that taking in too many sermons is a bad thing? I see another comment. It said you can't eat at everyone's table. So is it problematic?
No, I think sometimes we can over spiritualize things, and because different people have different perspectives. You can go every year. I participate in the seven last words somewhere every year. Seven last words somewhere, and it's the same words every year, but each preacher every year has something different to say about it. There's a different perspective. There's a different point of view, and I think there's something to be gained um, from allowing ourselves to hear other different points of view, instead of limiting ourselves and over spiritualizing and handicapping ourselves spiritually to what one person says. You can hear the same scripture preached nine different ways, nine different times, and it'll all be relevant based upon when it was preached, where it was preached, who was preaching it, why they were preaching it. And so I think that's kind of a passe kind of deal when there's too many sermons or things like that. I think that's kind of a controlling thing where we want to control people, where we only want them to hear us or their pastor or their preacher. If it's not their pastor, their preacher, it's not a word. That's antichrist. That's not God. That's antichrist. Because just like that, Joel Osteen and T.D. Jakes can preach the same thing in two different ways, and it'll still be relevant to me. Because Joe Osteen saw the scripture, he saw something else, and T.D. Jakes saw something else. And so I think we have to allow our palates to be open and allow our minds and hearts to be open, so we can be free to hear and not control ourselves or limit ourselves to one way. I think that's kind of passe, and we really have to get away from that.
Thank you very much. I see another question, and we're going to throw to Representative Jones. Do you agree that our people are praying more and getting closer?
I would definitely hope so. I think right now a lot of people that we're noticing, at least, folks are starting, prayer circles. I've seen some of the pastors. I've seen even some normal folk just starting prayer lines and hotlines, using different platforms like Free Conference Call, for example. I've seen a lot of that coming together. So I think it's happening for sure. Even myself, I started doing a morning prayer at 7:30 a.m., our time, with one of my friends. And so I think we're seeing that happen just because we want to make sure that we're keeping people calm right now. With so much of the mass hysteria going on, we need to figure out how do we really keep ourselves grounded. We don't want people's faith to be shaken just because the situation is happening. So I think we're seeing a lot more people become more faithful and more active from that perspective. So I definitely would say I see a lot more people praying, a lot more people coming together, which is a beautiful thing.
Great. So in looking towards life after COVID, will we see the churches, like, you can put them all up because I want to look at them when I'm talking. Just put them all up on the screen. Can we get some sort of pastoral coalition going to where we can begin to move as an actual body and where we're not all off in our different silos? Is that something that you all can commit to moving forward, that we can start to try to build a relationship that allows us to serve people in a greater way by doing it together? Is that something that you guys think we need to do? And I see two hands, so I'm going to pass it to Elder Macklin, and then we're going to go to Pastor Yardley.
I'm all for the building of coalitions and pulling strength together. Where I think those usually lose a lot of focus is when we don't recognize and we don't keep the need in mind. Right. So
Okay.
we can have them as long as the need is clear. Because this is why churches have to remain open even though the doors are closed, because people have needs. We have spiritual needs, we have mental needs, we have needs in our mind and our heart, and the word of God fills those needs. Right. So we have to continue to keep the need at the forefront. And as long as the need is up front, we're good. I think we'll be fine. You can form however many coalitions we need. You know, that's great, as long as the need is not lost in all of the heads wanting to have power within a large group. That's usually what happens when you get 50 pastors in a room. Everybody wants to tell you what they preached last Sunday, and it just gets quite annoying. So,
Pastor Yardley.
I agree with Elder Macklin. I think if we keep the negativity out, saying, well, this will happen last time, and if we keep the negativity out, just don't even speak on the negative, speak on the love, and speak on why we're here. And as Elder Macklin said, if we keep the hierarchy out of the room, because sometimes I believe, I'll say this and I'll be quiet, sometimes I believe we have the right conversation, it's just with the wrong people. And so, but if we have the right conversation with the right people who are, and uh it can't be just the big guys, Jamal Bryant, those guys, because I don't do what Jamal Bryant does. My church isn't that big, so I don't care. I hope my doesn't like me being disrespectful, but I don't care what Jamal Bryant's doing. I don't have Jamal Bryant money. I don't have TD Jakes money. So what TD Jakes is doing with Potter's house, I'm not doing with Destiny. We're on two different levels, and we're in two different places. And so if we can keep that hierarchy out of it and allow it to be organic, and as Elder Macklin said, keep the need up forefront, keep why we're there forefront, and not just a bunch of guys get in the room, someone trying to be important, someone having a whole lot to say. Because at this stage, people are dying, and I can care less if you're a bishop or you're an apostle or you're a pastor. I can care less. How can we better serve people? How can we better serve God? How can we turn this generation towards God? And how can we keep those who've been serving God connected to God? And that's it. If that's the conversation you want to have, it doesn't matter to me. I'm leaving. I can stay home. I can stay home. And so that, I think the need has to be forefront, and the positivity has to be forefront.
Pastor Darrell, we're going to come to you on this next question. It says, it seems that this corona apocalypse is severely challenging the traditional mindset of attending in person, equal more effective. Once churches are back open, will your churches go back to relying largely on in-person congregating or advocating for more streaming as well?
As I said before, I'm an old man, and so I believe that we cannot forsake in-person gatherings. And the truth of the matter is, what people are realizing right now is they want to be in physical proximity to other human beings. Facebook ain't doing it. Instagram not doing it. People are craving to get out the house and physically be around other human beings. And so, no, we're not going to shift from that. I think it just causes us to better utilize social media and virtual things, but you cannot cut out gathering together. Human beings need a gathering space. Now, what that looks like and all that stuff after this, it might be slightly different, but no, we're not cutting that out.
Pastor Cortland. Pastor Cortland.
Right. I totally agree, because one, say for instance, like today, my uncle went to the hospital and he had a stroke in his eye. And I wasn't able to go to the hospital and connect with him or to comfort him. I wasn't able to go inside. I longed to go inside. My grandmother is in the care facility, and COVID-19 happened to go in there, and I can't go there. And so it is that I believe that the church needs that physical presence. They need that physical touch because even weddings are being affected, funerals are being affected. All these type of things are happening that we as a church help to bring some life to in the presence. I got people were planning to get married right now who are facing some difficult times, some decisions that they have to make, and so it's difficult not to do church together or to fail to assemble ourselves together because there are so many other entities that are involved in church, not just having a service on Sunday morning.
Gotcha. Pastor DL, do you want to weigh in on this question?
COVID-19 did was in response to the church is it's going to have a more critical eye on what we do when we gather, because I think that's going to be important. So now people are in a position where they cannot have their time wasted because our gatherings are not being fruitful and they're not being productive. Some people have really found their creative juices during this lockdown season, the shelter in place. And so I think the question that begs to be asked is, why then should I come out? What are you doing different? How are you being creative? Or is it the same thing we've always done in midnight musicals that the Holy Spirit doesn't move in? Or messages, us using trial sermons to let other people hone their gifts. I think after COVID-19, we're going to have to be well thought out, and we're going to have a strategy, because people are in a different mindset. Although all of us haven't been infected, all of us have definitely been affected by COVID-19. And for some of us, the affected is going to have a worse time moving forward than the infected.
So we were talking yesterday, and we'll start with Representative Jones. We were talking yesterday, and we were talking about whether or not this was some sort of mental health break or some sort of break that God has given His people for them to recharge. Do you have an opinion on that? Is this something that God has granted His folks to get rest? Because, I like to say, after that 400 years hit and God was like, my people need a break. And he's just like, okay, bam, COVID. And now everybody chilling. So do you think that this is something that he's granted his folks to give them some rest?
Well, I mean, I think it really depends on how you look at it. And then first and foremost, I would say, I think maybe we, as maybe a minority of the Black community are blessed. But a majority of the Black community, however, is charged with a lot of jobs that are deemed essential, that are deemed them being critical infrastructure workers, just because of the way prejudice and racism has been set up in the corporate world, in the business world. And so a lot of people actually are not even on break. A lot of our people are actually on the front line, exposed to the actual virus, to this crisis that is going on. But I think at the same time, depending on how we play it, people have a chance right now, whether it's for mental health development, whether it's financial development, whether it's just personal and family development. We really all just have at least a bit of time to figure out what we really want to do with ourselves. While we're sitting at home with ourselves or with our families, we don't have to go out so much. We don't have so much to do. We don't have to spend so much money. We don't have to commit so much time to certain things. We can really take a moment to figure out how we want to better ourselves, or some people might just be relaxing and just enjoying the time, sitting down and Netflixing and chilling, like the young people say. And so, right now is really just our time. Yeah, the young people. I'm a quarter of a century now, so I'm getting a little old. I just had a birthday. I'm getting old. But I think right now it really just depends. How do you choose to spend your time? So if people want to take that time to develop themselves, it's there. But at the same time, you might just want to sit back and relax.
That's a really interesting point, because a lot of times I've been seeing different folks saying that God has removed the distractions so that we can focus more on the things that are really important. I see, families are spending more time together. I know I have the privilege of being able to work from home, and so does my husband. My kid is in the house. I'm not traveling all around to these different school districts. It's provided a kind of a refresher in a sense, to where we get to refocus on the things that matter the most. And the bonus is we're able to take in his word. So, anytime that we can remove distractions, we should do that. How would you say that people can take better care of themselves during this time?
I mean, right now, I mean the same sentiment from before. We have a moment right now. We have a little bit more time to figure out what we want to do with ourselves. And so whether you want to go and lose those 5 or 10 pounds, or you want to learn how to cook more, you want to learn how to get on the Robinhood or the Acorn apps to figure out how you can invest some additional money in stocks. You have the time to do it right now. And so it really just takes us being committed to a certain mission, being focused, and making sure that we don't use that we use that time sparingly, and that we're focused during that amount of time. We don't want to just be throwing it away, unless you want to, of course. I don't want to tell people what to do, but since we have more time now, it really depends. Where do you want to focus your time and your resources on to really develop yourself during this period? And you can do that a plethora of ways, but if you don't want to do it, that's on you. And as long as you're still alive, you're doing something right, and God is still blessing you. And so, keep doing what you're doing.
Great. So let's go over to Pastor Yardley, because I had a chance to see the Facebook post that you put up after the pastor in Virginia passed, after not closing his doors. And I got to see your heart in that moment. Why did you decide to put up that post at this time?
Well, first, let me say my condolences to the pastor there in Virginia and to his family. It was not malicious in any kind of way. I never thought that I would get beat up for wanting people to live. That's the first thing, for just caring about people. The second thing coming from it is I care about people. And knowing that we don't know where this comes from, we can't see it. We don't know who has it. And then we have guys who, we have people who are making other people feel like they don't have faith. A lot of people outside of the faith community are jousting with the faith community about us not having faith. And so some guys, they want some gentlemen or ladies, they want to err on that side, and instead of err on the side of caution, to be careful and to not just look at things in the face and try to force your way. And God's given us a way of escape, and our way of escape could be to stay home. And I'm reminded of Exodus 12, the Passover story, when God told Moses, tell the people to take a hyssop branch and paint blood over the doorposts. But then he also told Moses, tell the people to stay home. So he said the blood will cover you, but if you're not at home, you won't be covered. And I think we just need to take a break and take a moment and not be so hard-headed and so so demanding and trying to put God to the test all the time. Lastly, my dad used to tell a story about a guy who was at his house, and there was a storm coming, and the police drove by and said, storm's here, you got to evacuate. He said, I'm waiting on God. The storm water rose, went to a flood, it rose. He was upstairs, the boat came, and they said, we're coming to rescue. He said, I'm waiting on God. The water rose, he was on his roof, the helicopter came, and he said, I'm waiting on God. He drowned, and he got to heaven, and he said, God, I was waiting on you. And God said, I sent a police officer, I sent a boat, and I sent a helicopter, and you refused. I was there the whole time. And I think God has given us a way of escape if we just take it and stop trying to try his hand. And if we just stay home, just stay. And I don't care what anybody says about me. I'm not afraid. Just stay our Black, white, Mexican, Chinese butts at home at this point, so we can be safe, because we don't know who has it. We don't know. And I'll joust with anybody. We don't know. And so if we just do that, You know, that's my heart. I'm about to cry right now because I don't want to see nobody hurt. I don't want to see anybody else. I don't want to see anybody else go out because of this virus. My nephew had it. He's better now, but I don't want anybody to go out for this. And so, you know, I got a pastor friend here who just wants to try. Who just wants to try it. Stay home, man. Don't do it. You can tell the people to stop, close the doors and lock them. They won't come back. Just stay home. And we're going to be all right. I'll make them come back when we get done. I'll close my church and go out and pick your members up, take them back to your church. Let's just stay home so we'll know until we know that it can be a little bit better. And so that's just my heart about it. So hope
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing.
Okay.
And I don't think that you should have to even worry about offending people. A lot of times, some people just don't want to hear advice. But I think that because of the nature of this virus, we have to be cautious. And so I don't think that anybody should have jumped on you for sharing your heart in that way. Because when we were talking yesterday, we were talking about whether or not we're even ready for the rapture, because, you know, a lot of your colleagues are out here preaching that this was the end of days. So do you think that we're living in that time where it's the end of days and we ready to go? And that's why people are testing the faith?
It's been the end of days since Jesus got on the cross and went to heaven. So so it's been being promoted. It's the last days since then. I don't believe it's the last days. I believe this is an opportunity for us to better ourselves in terms of how we reach people and how we touch people. And instead of trying to get out of here while we're here, let's teach people to be better. And let me say this, and I promise I'll be quiet. Let me say this and I'll be quiet. I think what we have to do as pastors is we want our congregations to obey us and do what we said God told us to do. But then we stand in the face of them and we disobey. And I think that this is a prime time for pastors and bishops and elders and stuff like that. Take your collars off, take your robe off, and just sit down, be quiet, and just obey. Show the people how to obey, and because they follow our leads, they really do. And if we can just obey, and with that pastor passed away, nothing against him, and I don't know his situation, but I know he's gone. And I saw the video where he defiantly said what he said in one way or another, and we stand that, and people follow us. And then I saw his son or daughter, whoever, who had to announce and said, we regret that he passed away from COVID-19. I saw that. And so if we would just obey and don't put God to the test, you don't have to put him to the test. He's given us a way of escape. Stay home and we'll be okay. And so if we just do those things, you know, I think we'll be okay. But I don't think it's the end of days. Well, it's been the end of days since Jesus left, according to everybody. So yeah. If you die today, it's the end of days today.
Thank you for that. Pastor DL, we were having this conversation yesterday. Talk to me about this faith over everything type of church. Talk to me about what prompted you to have that conversation.
Well, I think where it was initiated from was the idea that in Mississippi, churches or pastors were being fined for their members sitting in their cars for Easter Sunday, which is, in religious context, one of the biggest Sundays of church history. And they were being fined $500 per person who was riding in the car. I went on my Facebook Live and I said the churches have been targeted because we haven't, up until today, there hasn't been any legislation on Taco Bell or In-N-Out Burger. As a matter of fact, it is Walmart that issued its own mandates for how to shop at Walmart. So here's the juxtaposition. The juxtaposition was, you're going to fine people for going to church, but they can still go to Walmart. They can still go shopping. They can still go to the drive-ins, but they are going to get fined by going to church. And so while I do err on the side of caution with Pastor Griffin, I'm concerned about the health of my parishioners, yet and still, most of them who will not go to church and claim it on COVID are still going to Walmart. Some pastors who argued with me that day bring their barbers, their nail techs over their house and get their hairline fixed and get their nails done so they can look good for social media. And it's still person-to-person interaction. So at that particular point, I said, I don't think you have a dog in this fight. If you invite people over your house so you can look pretty, so you can be on the internet, then why fine parishioners for sitting in their cars? I didn't say for going in their churches. I think while I knew Pastor Glenn, I knew of him, I've been to the church down there, while I think that was very unfortunate, and he comes from a different train of thought. There are just certain old school preachers or old school mindsets. My mother does not wear pants. She's Kojic to the bone. I don't care what we're doing nowadays. She does not wear pants, and she don't go to the movies. I tried to take her. She will not go. She believes she's sitting in the seat of the scornful. And I had to ask her, well, Mom, those people are going to Denny's. Are those seats scornful too, or is it just the movies? It is sometimes old mindsets that get us in trouble. However, I thought the church had been targeted. And I've been reading up on the Washington Post posited that some judges did agree. They believe that the country was trying to enact rules for religiosity that they haven't enacted in other entities. So that's the real problem I have with our restrictions. And some of them, I think I even posited, they're not laws. They're guidelines for you to be healthy. Some of our churches are still operating full out. I'm at church on Sunday from 8 o'clock in the morning to about 1:30 in the afternoon with a crew of about 10 people, because we still have to put on our service. So you got to be wise, you got to be smart. And as a man of God and a pastor, I'm concerned for the health of my parishioners. I just didn't think it was fair. I thought it was opportunistic of the country to target the churches and give them fines for not wanting to do Easter Sunday online and to be in their cars, as long as there wasn't person-to-person contact, because some pastors did disrupt that order, and they were trying to give people communion or trying to collect tithe and offering, and I thought that's where they broke rank. That's where they crossed the line. But other than that, I just thought it was very targeted for the church to be fined for gathering, and there's no fines or regulations as of right now for Walmart or the movies or drive-in or drive-through restaurants.
Okay. Pastor Cortland, do you agree with that? Did you have a problem with the shelter in place and people showing up in their cars on Easter Sunday? Uh-oh, can't hear you. Is your microphone off?
Yeah, we actually had service on Zoom on Easter Sunday. But I do agree that there are times when some things are just wrong, right? There are times when there is a time to be defiant. Maybe it's social justice issues, maybe Esther situation in which you have to stand up. I see an Esther in front of me right now. So there are moments when you have to speak up, when you have to say something against something that is when you are targeted, or people are targeted, or they are coming against what you believe. You find that in the book of Acts, where the Bible talks about Peter, and they're trying to stop us from, proclaiming Christ. So there are times when you are defiant to what is going on. But we also want to make sure that we are following the governing rules. I believe that, and that's what, again, like I stated earlier, that's what governed my decision. I wanted to be, like Pastor Yardley said earlier, I wanted to be an example before the people that I lead, and so we had to scramble and try to figure things out, but we did. And so again, I agree, a time to take a stand, but then there is also a time to follow and obey what is being instructed to you. And that's the best example as pastors we can do is be obedient as well.
And so basically what I got from what Pastor DL was just saying was that there were certain rules or guidelines set up for the churches that other places that people frequent were not put into place. And so he had a problem with there not being a fair kind of distribution of the guidelines across the board. And so his point is well taken, but at the same time, knowing that, and we're gonna actually kick it to Representative Jones, knowing that the government has the ability to put certain guidelines in place, how do we as the community start to advocate for the places that we deem essential, and so they don't miss out on gathering together? Like, you understand what I'm saying? Because you're shaking your head. Okay.
I think we definitely just need to make sure that we're being cognizant first of who we elect. I think around election time, and then no matter who gets in office, I think it's important to lobby folk. And so I think one of the biggest things that we can definitely do is make sure we're in touch with the people that are making some of these decisions. A lot of times, we might start movements, or we might create some kind of disruption that might, be well in the planning, and might sound good and look good. But if it's not really reaching these people that's making decisions before they start making these decisions, we find ourselves in a lot of difficult situations. And so I think sometimes it's just important for us to create these systems and this infrastructure ahead of time. And so I know for myself, I've been proactive in terms of meeting the people where they're at, trying to see what are the issues, what are the concerns. But a lot of times you may have people that are more proactive, or you might have people that you have to go and hold their feet to the fire sometimes, just to let them know, hey, this is what we need. We're here. This is what we need you to do. And you realize that a lot of people who are in office are actually very docile, and they will pay attention. They're very coachable. But you have to figure out how do we sell that point to them. And so I think once the community is unified, if you can get together and sell a point to somebody, and you have the power there, in numbers, that whatever you're basically saying, now you have the ear of the person that has the ear of the masses. And that allows you to go ahead and communicate your message effectively, where it'll come back to you and be very beneficial for you.
Thank you for that. Let's go over to Elder Macklin. Do you agree? Do you agree that we need to start getting into these places where folks are making decisions for us and about us when we're not actually at the table?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was a community organizer before I went to seminary, and I organized with PICO, People Improving Communities. They're organizing in Berkeley, San Francisco, East Palo Alto, Hayward, in Oakland. And that was really the main piece. We always lose because we don't have the right people sitting at the table. And what I was told was, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Absolutely.
Which for the church is usually always the case. So you have to be at the table. You have to be well read. If you're not reading, you don't have anything to say. And you have to make sure you come to the table with information that will help you as a church study. Figure out what you need. Figure out who's getting grant money. Figure out what programs are being funded. Don't try to create something brand new. Millions upon millions of dollars is given out every year. My challenge to pastors is not to figure out what can you create. I'm going to figure out, where are they putting this money? How can I create something that would allow them to say, hey, we just funded something like that. Let's fund yours as well. But you can't have those conversations unless you're sitting at the table. So you got to be well read, got to be well studied, and you got to be at the table. Totally agree.
Perfect. Selena, if we can get everybody on the screen real quick, because we do understand, and I see the question and I'm going to get to it, but if we can get everybody on the screen really quickly. What I wanted to bring up, we have to understand that there is power in numbers, and we have to be unified in moving forward. If we want to see some of these things changed, we have to understand the importance of gathering together with like-minded individuals. And that's why I think BSBA is so important, to this moving forward is we have to figure out how we're about to get to the table. Not asked to get to the table, but how we're going to get to the table. And then once we get to that table, what we're going to say and who we need to be advocating for. That's going to be our challenge moving forward. So if you're interested in BSBA and joining with folks who are like-minded, who want to push the elected officials to do the right thing by our faith-based community, we need you to go ahead and go to our website, www.bsba-ca.org, and sign up for a membership. That is our plug for that moment. And I'm going to go right back to you all. If you can put that question up, Selena. But remember, if you want to become a member of BSBA, the down there, sign up, and we would love to have you as part of our Lock and Step crew. There was a question from Lady Tawana Porter. It says, when the state opens in the midst of this, or when will you open your churches for parishioners? So if the state opens up, can we expect an immediate opening, or y'all gonna do a soft opening? You gonna have some guidelines in place? What can we expect from you?
Well, I guess I can. I'll speak first. First of all, I saw this meme, and it said, when they open outside back up, I'm gonna let some of y'all go outside first, and then I'll check and see.
I saw it.
So that's gonna be my first piece. I'm gonna let some of the saints who want to try anything go outside first. But I've been speaking with our servant leaders, as well as I had a meeting with our partners the other day, and just 2 days ago, as a matter of fact, and shared with them that what we're going to be doing is, after they let us know when it's okay to go back, we will 9 times out of 10 we're going to wait another week or so. And then what we're going to be another week or two. And then what we're going to do is we're going to split our service in half and go to 2 services, so that we can continue social distancing. And so, because it's not our building. We're in a shared location. It's a smaller building. And so we pack them in there. But if we cut them in half, everybody can sit in one or another seat, and have some space in between it, because I want people to feel comfortable coming back to church, and I don't want to give them a reason not to come. If they don't want to come, or they're just not coming, that's one thing. But if they do want to come, I want them to feel comfortable coming. And so we're going to split our service in half. We're going to go to 2 services. And so that's that. But we're going to wait a week or 2 to see how this thing really falls out. And we've been doing pretty good online. And so everybody shook their head and said amen when I mentioned it to them, to the 3 different groups. And so that's our plan of action.
Pastor Cortland, go ahead, Pastor Dio.
Thank you. Remember, earlier on in COVID-19, they were saying that it was going to die and then come back a bit stronger. So this is a season to be well informed. Until vaccines vaccines have been issued, the possibility of opening up our states at this particular point is still a moot point. We're still putting people at risk because we don't know how it works. We don't know who has it. We don't know who's been infected. So until they start issuing hard information, like they have vaccinated half the country, I don't think it's even fair to put that type of thought in Americans' minds.
No, I don't. I'm one of them ones. I don't go for the vaccines because they be experimenting on us. I just think the Tuskegee experiment, I don't be letting people just put anything in us. So we got to research that before we even start talking about allowing folks or encouraging folks to take vaccines that these folks ain't never even thought of. We ain't doing that. Pastor Cortland, what does church look like for you when we reopen?
Well, definitely, we're going to make sure we follow the guidelines. I think the way they're going to come, that they went out, that's the same way they're going to come back in. They'll probably start with 10 people being able to come back to a setting, and we'll just kind of follow along with that. And that will give us enough time to strategize. And I like Pastor Yardley's idea of splitting the services up. And I think right now, when we're coming together and we're having these conversations, it gives us a better outlook on what we can possibly do as pastors. And so we'll definitely be following the guidelines, but I like the option of breaking those services into two.
Okay. Let's go. We have one more question and then I'm gonna try to wrap it up because we've been on here for a while, y'all. This is a good conversation. And I want to make sure that if we decide to do this again, that you guys will commit to coming back and hanging out with me. Is that good?
Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, fantastic. All right. So the last question that we're going to take is says, who can help write a coronavirus church bill, a way to help the church and give guidance to all churches? So the only elected I see is Representative Jones, and he's not even here in California. But what can people do to write a bill and get their elected? And I know everybody's not like you. You are one of a kind, sir. But how can we help electeds with this bill proposal?
Well, I mean, I definitely think, especially, I see all the melanin on this call, maybe reaching out to the Black Caucus out there in Sacramento at the Capitol and sit down with them. I'm sure it's something that's already on their radar, but just to give them a little bit more motivation to let them know this is something that we're looking for, something that we need, and just give them some input. I think that'd probably be the best route to go, as well as tapping in with your local representatives. They might not be a part of the Black Caucus or the Legislative Black Caucus, just to make sure they also support, because allies are important too. And even just doing some due diligence to find out who the person is over appropriations. If it's not one of our brothers and sisters, just to make sure they know as well if it's going to be some funding attached to the program or project that you are working on that you all needed, and all of you needed, having that strong representation there. But that's what I would definitely say would be a good starting point.
And I just want to remind the viewers that the executive director of BSBA did work for the Black Caucus for 7 years, has lobbied for a couple of the unions out here. And so I think that we have the tools and the people in place to get a bill like that written. We just need the people power to help us push it. So again, membership, bsba-ca.org to sign up so that we can get a coalition of folks to come behind us when we do present this information to the decision makers here. And I know I said that was the last question, but I saw one that I just can't pass up. It says, as a Black Christian MD, I'm wondering whether the church can be a center for antibody testing. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I don't think necessary. It would go church to church. You would have to go pastor to pastor or church to church. We can't speak for every church. I think sometimes when people say things like that, will the church do it? Yes, certain churches will, but others won't. And so you have to kind of tap in to your different churches that you want to go to and that you want to have representation there. And so I can't answer for Pastor Courtland. I can't answer for Bishop DL. I can't answer for Elder Aaron and his father. But I do know there are churches that would do it, but there are some who won't, and then they have their reasons why. They have their reasons why, and so we couldn't give a definitive answer because we aren't it, and so.
Elder Macklin, you had your finger raised. Do you want to weigh in on that question?
Actually, Pastor Griffin answered. Gave my comment just great. Some churches will, some churches won't, for certain risks and rewards. So with a larger church, and I'm not talking about Glad Tidings, I'm talking about my father representing the Church of God in Christ, everything he does is seen as, he's going to do it within or for the Church of God in Christ. So all it takes is two bad apples to say Bishop Macklin is testing things on the Church of God in Christ. And then that will literally just, everything goes straight to, the other side. So I would love to see some progress. I'd love to see, something great come from it. But I know a lot of churches, a lot of pastors won't be willing to put their churches, quote unquote, at risk, even if it does work. I hope it does work. Some churches will, some churches won't. So totally agree with Pastor Griffin.
Well, thank you. And I really, really, really appreciate you all allowing me to ride shotgun with you this evening. Before we wrap up, can we go to everyone for their final thoughts, starting with Pastor Cortland, and we'll, Elder Macklin, you will follow Pastor Cortland. Your final thoughts on what you want the people to know, how they can get in touch with you, that type of thing. Go for it.
One of my final thoughts is forums like this oftentimes give us an opportunity not only to glean from our brothers, our fellow pastors, but it gives you an opportunity to tune in and see the process that leaders go through. And so I do thank God for this opportunity, this way of communicating to the community. And I think the BSBA is doing a great job. They had another program the other night, and I'm just grateful to be a part of this work. And so I will come back anytime, and we love you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Elder Macklin.
Yes, I'm excited that I was even able to be asked to be on this call. I'm not serving as a senior pastor, but I do a lot of work in that role, and I'm excited for it. One of the takeaways that I would give to so many on this call, pastors, or if you're a leader in any area, become a copious reader. Read as much as you can. Read as much as you can. I've had literally 4 books in my lap this whole time, just looking for. As soon as somebody said something, I say, "Oh, okay, I got something else. Oh, we got something else to say." If you're not reading, you have literally nothing to say. This whole coronavirus, it's not going to be the last time. This has become really the great awakening for the church again, for the church to stand up and remain the church. Just because the doors are closed does not mean your church has to be closed as well. We have to respond. We have to stay alert. We have to stay aggressive. And we have to remember the main goal is to expand the kingdom of God and not necessarily just to grow our churches. A lot of times we think if the church is big, the kingdom of God is big. And that's a fallacy. It's not true. So remain readers, seek the face of God, continue to pray, use these means, use Zoom, use Google Meets, Google Hangout, FaceTime, use everything you can. But let's remember to keep the main thing, and that's just keeping God forward. I've been enjoying everybody on the call tonight. Thanks for having me on. The church, Glad Tidings International on Facebook. You can find us there. Elder Aaron Macklin on Facebook. You can find me there too.
Thank you so very much, Pastor DL.
I want to thank everybody. I really want to thank Dr. Morrow for the information he was putting in the chat, because I've already downloaded some of those documents because I'm a reader as well. The Bible says in all you're getting, get an understanding. What I would really like the church not to do is operate based on fear, because that is undermining the work of our faith. And so be read, pray, by all means, seek God's face. You can reach me everywhere at DL Edwards or Connection Church on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you guys once again for allowing us to be a part.
Thank you for coming, and we're going to pass it to Pastor Yardley, and Representative Jones, you'll end us out, okay?
All right. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I had a great time hearing these pastors and Representative Jones. It's been my pleasure, my privilege, and my honor to share on this call with all of you. I would just say, I would echo what Elder Macklin said, keep the main thing in this season, this moment. If we would just simply Revelations 2, when God spoke through John to the church of Ephesus, you've been doing pretty good, but you forgot about what was first. And so if we can simply use this moment to get back to what's first in our lives, I think everything's going to be all right. And so I'm so grateful, and just to be on here, and y'all keep praying, keep loving God, keep loving each other, keep enjoying it, and then keep enjoying all this creativity that's going on Facebook, all these jokes and Instagram. Just keep enjoying it, enjoy this time we have, and laugh and smile, and just enjoy life right now. And I promise you, God's going to get us through this thing. And you can find me on Facebook, Yardley Griffin, Instagram, Yardley G, TikTok. I'm a TikToker. And so on TikTok too. And, oh yeah. And so you can find me on all Church Destiny Church on Facebook as well, and then Destiny the Experience Church on Instagram. And so find me there. God bless y'all. Keep y'all. Thank y'all so much. I really appreciate it.
Representative Jones.
Well, family, I mean, it's been an honor to be on here with all the greats. Everybody dropping scriptures. I'll be remiss if I didn't drop one. I definitely would say we need to make sure we living like I think it's First Corinthians, the 12th chapter, talking about the spiritual gifts and diversity of gifts. I think right now at a time where there's so much going on in the world, so much gray areas. That we all need to be tapping into that gift that we have, or those multiple gifts that we have, and figuring out how can we contribute to the overall work of the body, because we all know that we're the same spirit, and when we figure out who is the arm, who's the leg, who's the ear, who's the eye, and we can actually start moving together even beyond this crisis. But sometimes it takes a crisis to get us to wake up. So if we can get it together now, let's figure out how can we stick together in the future. So I just want to commend you all for keeping things going. I want to commend Lorena, Selena for putting this together, because I think this is very important, just to make sure that we're bringing folk together for a common focused goal. So I'm looking forward to working with you all. Anything I can do from Michigan, I'm definitely here to support. And so y'all keep up the good work. Peace and love.
Well, thank you, everyone, for coming and hanging out with me, letting me ask you some questions. We should do this again, and maybe we could have Dr. Morrow join us, because he's given a lot of information in the chat, and I think to be able to have him on and ask him some questions that we might have could be beneficial to the people. So, Selena, let's make that happen. Let's get in touch with Dr. Morrow and see when we can reschedule another one with this fantastic panel. Thank you guys again for allowing me to use my gift of gab. And y'all, like I told y'all made me come out of COVID retirement. I actually did my hair for y'all. So you just know that you're special. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you all for tuning in. If you have any more questions, please put them in the chat and someone will get back to you. Remember, membership, bsba-ca.org. Sign up, y'all too, all 6 of y'all, 5. Because the 6th one dropped out. All 5 of y'all, head on over to the website and sign up. And with that, we're out of here. See y'all later.